You knew it was too good to be true, that seemingly things were working out okay, but to see our boy say that he's gonna kill these monsters, I honestly didn't see that one coming. While there's always been suspiciousness with Hermes, I never thought this is where he would go. It felt like he was very much believing in Belle, but I don't know. I don't think all of them will probably die next week, but I wouldn't be surprised if most do. Guess time will tell how season 3 is going to conclude. Probably not going to be concluding in a good way by the looks of it. Wow, that's the best way to put it. Wow. This episode, though, taking a look at what we had in terms of what seemed to be a victory until we saw the very, very end, was an incredibly powerful, dynamic, interestingly engaging episode that had so many amazing action shots that you could take back and really just soak in their beauty and just the complexity to the fights and how many fights there were in this episode. But it all boiled down to Belle versus AIS and the idea of going back to where it all started in season 1, where Belle stood up and protected Huixiu and really made a name for himself, or started to, and using that same location to fight his greatest opponent, the one that he respects more than any other, and stand up to her even at the cost of his own life. And the idea of the build-up and the escalation of Belle in this episode I thought was a really, really well done. I thought it was incredibly emotional. Like I've said for weeks now, it feels like, oh, it looks like things are going good, and then they just completely crumble. In this episode, up until the Hermes moment, I was thinking it looks really good. Clearly, there's going to be some conflict after the battle, but there's not enough proof. If someone like AIS doesn't say anything, then again, maybe AIS will actually argue in Belle's favor. So to see the idea of this episode where, yeah, the cloaks are coming off, you actually have to stand your ground, and it feels just a little hopeless, but also slightly optimistic because there are allies coming to your aid, even in the face of so much despair that allying yourself with Belle's familia, I mean, that's not going to look good for you in the future, but they're doing so because either their master requested it or they're doing it out of their own free will. And the idea of someone like AIS not backing down and firmly committing to her opinion that even if they can talk, even if they can feel things, they are monsters. From their point of view, in a world that they've grown up, that monsters are monsters and you kill them no matter what, the idea of them saying like they have claws, they have teeth, they have these things that will kill people even if they can talk and they do like you, if they go on a rampage like before, how many people are going to die? And technically they're in the right. But if we look at it from our perspectives, when we know that humans are capable of just as much murder, you understand why obviously they're not going to agree, but also why they're wrong all at the same time. So the idea of her not backing down and committing is much more in line with her character and a realistic way of thinking for this world than if she simply said, I agree with you, Belle, you know what you're doing, I will back down and I will help you. If they went that way, it would be cliche, it would be typical, and it would just be that power fantasy harem that people used to make jabs at, that this is what the show was. So to actually have Belle go all out and actually impress her in the middle of this fight and honestly impress the viewers, going up against arguably the strongest sword princess out there, like she is an amazing fighter and Belle is doing amazingly. Even though he is getting kind of destroyed in certain senses, he's able to keep up with her even at the cost of his own life. He's not really giving in to his exhaustion and he's continuing to push himself further and further and further. And to see the kind of shock in her own face being like, wow, he actually has improved, so I actually have to go all out now. And the idea that she very much doesn't want to hurt him and is just saying, I won't say anything as long as you move. If you move, this will all be forgiven from my point of view. And Belle is refusing. So the idea that this fight was going on, and even though it wasn't evenly matched, Belle was giving her a run for her money, even if she was holding back slightly at certain points. So I wasn't sure exactly what they were going to do. I was personally expecting Weine to die in this episode. I thought what was going to happen in the pretty typical, she would pop up just as the sword's coming and she would get stabbed and then she would realize, oh, so actually she's a good person, these monsters can feel things, she actually gave her life for Belle, I will now help Belle get the remainder of monsters out and safe and secure, things like that. That's the direction I personally thought they were going, and that's the most typical and I think cliche and predictable outcome that could have happened. So the idea of actually just simply having her stand up and say, do not bully him, do not hurt him, and she's saying, it doesn't matter what you say to me, I'm not going to change my opinion, you have claws, you are a monster. So her actually ripping off her own fingernails and ripping off her wing, it's such a disgustingly bold move. It's something that's painful to look at, it's painful to listen to. And to see her reaction just change like that, I think the performance was incredible. Not only just with the animation to her face and body reactions in terms of how it just completely crushes, realizing that that's a person the same as us and I have no idea what to feel or think. Her voice actress did an amazing job, really just indicating that I have no reason to fight this. Go. I can't argue against this. You're no different than me. I think that's the proper way to deal with that conflict, rather than going with the typical Wenig dies for Belle in that moment. She realizes that, oh, she's a good monster, I apologize, Belle's a little crushed. That's what you see time and time again in a situation like that, so the idea of her making a sacrifice and showing the resolve of how much she cares for him and that she will abandon everything that makes her a monster that she personally can, but please don't hurt him. It's such a great way to indicate that there is a potential change that can happen in this world, even if it does take generations down the line. The more people who teach their children that these intelligent monsters aren't to be feared, but they're just as dangerous as any bad human out there, it's just nice to see that there was that change. And I knew there was going to be conflict in next week's episode, but I was personally thinking that conflict would be more on the political side of certain people going against the Familia, other people siding with it, and there might be a bit of a divide where Belle would kind of be the man and say, you know what, I will leave, I was the cause of this, and he would take it all on his own shoulders. The idea of Belle promising that someday he would build a place where they could all live in peace. It felt like, yeah, it wasn't going to end completely well, but it didn't feel like we were going to see someone we kind of trusted at this point saying, you're all going to die. And I don't know where you go with that, because this is a god by all rights. How do you defeat that? I don't know, but I'm very worried. I feel like Fels is going to have a very big role to play in next week's episode, probably going out in a blaze of glory. Hard to say, but this was a very action-packed episode that you can pause at so many moments and get great screen grabs and just say this is incredibly well drawn. The sparks of blades crossing with each other, the magic swords, the ice and things like that. There's just so much fun happening, and just characters like Haruhime getting a chance to shine as well. There's just a lot to appreciate in terms of just the entertainment value, but that emotional grip is what really made this episode once again an incredible episode of Danmachi. It's been like a month now that we've been watching this little stretch of the arc here, and it feels like it kind of has a similar formula, but not in a bad way. It feels like hopeless. You walk into the episode, there's points in the episode where you're like, oh, it's actually going to go good, and then it always ends in crushing sorrow. And if that's how season 3 ends, holy shit, is that going to be a brutal cliffhanger as we wait for hopefully a season 4. Incredible episode, emotionally engaging, and just I don't know what's going to happen. And I can't wait to find out what's going to occur in next week's episode as we hopefully get that season 4 announcement sooner rather than later. Let me know your thoughts and feelings and definitely your theories down below. What do you think's going to happen and how shocked are you watching this episode? If you enjoyed the video, of course leave a like, show your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.